October 7, 2023, has reminded the world about the Israel-Palestine conflict. For years, the Israeli regime and its policies of apartheid towards Palestinians had gone largely unsanctioned.
I know all that I had heard about Israel and the struggle of the Jewish people and the Holocaust. So up until that point, you're taught to believe that they're dark-skinned terrorists and you should be afraid of them.
The war on Gaza, instead, has exposed the true nature of the Israeli occupation.
I grew up being scared telling people that I'm Palestinian. It's better to tell them you're Jordanian or tell them you're Emirati or tell them you're something else, but don't tell them you're Palestinian. What October 7th did was at least put Palestine on the map for Americans.
The images of suffering and destruction that are accompanying the conflict have sparked a global outcry. However, the first to speak out and utter the term genocide with reference to Gaza were not judges, but students. Millions across the globe took to the streets to voice their protest against Israeli oppression. They asked for justice, peace, and an end to the violence. In the United States college campuses, witnessed a surge in activism in solidarity with Palestine. At UCLA, the U.S.'s #1 public university, students and faculty decided to make their voices heard on April 25th, 2024.
Yeah, we see so many videos of Palestinian children starving and just being killed every day. It's very, very uncomfortable, all of the violence we see, and I think that really made people want to do something about it.
The events that unfolded in Los Angeles are unique. Our journalist, Emmanuel Piano, investigated how a peaceful protest against the genocide was met with violence, manipulation, and lies. Has justice been served?
Protests against the war in Gaza are taking over college campuses across the country.
I very strongly remember April 25th because I was making breakfast. I had left my phone in my room and I come back to a bunch of calls and I immediately knew an encampment has started.
UCLA now joining a list of a growing number of universities where the war in Gaza has simply exploded into outright protest.
Since I am the editor of Century City Westwood News, UCLA is the big university in Westwood. So when there's something going on at UCLA, it's big news. So I'm like, well, I better get out there.
The protesters demanding an end to the bloodshed in Gaza, where tens of thousands of Palestinians have been killed.
I think people just came together and decided that it was time for us to have one, and then as soon as it started, it just kept growing because people like me just saw it and were like, yeah, I would like to join, and it certainly just grew from there.
They are calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and for the university to end all funding connected to Israel.
The demands from UCLA were pretty clear. Divest fully and completely from Israeli weapons companies and any research ties with Israel, showing clearly that we would not support this genocide under any terms.
and they're calling it a solidarity encampment. In the distance, you can see a sign, UCLA faculty and staff standing with the students.
I was excited on April 25th when I saw the encampment appear. I mean, I was glad that the students were actually taking some kind of action. And initially it was small. It wasn't like a massive thing right away. I remember walking past it and just seeing a few tents and a few students with some, Free Palestine signs.
Now, UCLA says authorities are actively monitoring this situation. They're trying to minimize disruption to campus life while respecting the freedom of expression, freedom of speech.
When that April 26th statement went out saying that the encampment could remain, the first thing I remember is there was a lot of really glowing media coverage directed at UCLA about how, well, they're handling it the right way. This is the way to do it.
UCLA's approach to the encampment, we are following University of California's system-wide policy guidance, which directs us not to request law enforcement involvement preemptively and only if absolutely necessary to protect the physical safety of our campus community.
I was really excited by what Gene Block said. Gene Block is the chancellor of UCLA. His announcement that the UC would abide by its policy on de-escalation. So in other words, it wouldn't immediately turn to the police to clear things out. And so I hoped that condition would prevail because I thought it was great. Students exercising their right to free speech, their freedom of assembly, and, putting into practice the things that they learn in the classroom,
I saw Jewish students wearing a kippah and a keffiyeh at the same time, and everybody had their signs like Jewish students for Palestine, or Iranians for Palestine, or Filipinos for Palestine, or Latinos for Palestine. So it was like a huge mixed salad of all sorts of people, everybody sharing their experiences, and everybody just showing love.
There were teach-ins where people were learning about the history of Gaza, not just of the genocide and of the occupation, but also of their culture and art and community.
I was there when the prayers were given by the Muslim students. I was there to see the Jewish students getting together to celebrate. It was incredible.
It was exactly the type of community and diverse coming together for a common cause that UCLA claims to believe in and to be all about.
But also, we always had counter-protesters. It wasn't all just fun, but yeah, we dealt with a lot of opposition, and especially in the first few days. People would just try to sort of provoke, but through the policy of agreeing not to agitate, which is, everyone agreed.
The violence just began immediately upon the encampment being erected in Dixon Plaza. There were already people outside of it, very angry about its existence and very clear that they really did not agree with UCLA's decision to keep it on the university's property.
I believe that what they were trying to do pretty early on was trying to start fights so that basically the police would be called in and they would break up the camp and problem solved. And I think they started feeling that public opinion was turning against them and not accept the standard narrative that exists in America, that basically anyone who questions what Israel does in Palestine and Gaza and the West Bank and Ramallah is being anti-Semitic.
This is day 4 of this pro-Palestinian encampment here at UCLA. Those protesters have been camped out with tents here.
I once went into an elevator and I had my kufiya on, and there was a Jewish lady, and she looked at me in disgust, and she was like, this is not a good symbol to wear. This is what Muslims wear when they kill people. This is what she told me. So, Zionists will look at this and say, this is anti-Semitic. This means kill all the Jews. This is not what it means.
Two dueling demonstrations set to take place here on the UCLA campus at 11 a.m. The counter-protest group will start saying it's in support of Jewish students. Now, a GoFundMe account has raised nearly $60.
The students were overtly critical of the policies of the Netanyahu government. But I think that the students were also sophisticated in their understanding of the differences between the state of Israel and then Jews in general.
Counter-protest was organized by the nonprofit group. It's called the Israeli American Council. It writes on its social media pages that encampments like this one are, quote, overtly anti-Semitic. In the meantime, the leaders of the encampment say
It's a lot easier for people to claim the narrative that this was an organization of anti-Jewish students than it is to imagine that this was a peaceful protest of people of all walks of life, united against Zionism and united against Israeli settler colonialism and united against the ongoing genocide in Gaza.
A GoFundMe titled Ruins for Israel to support those counter-protests of the UCLA pro-Palestinian encampment here has raised more than $60,000 in the past day to help bring more big screens and loudspeakers to Dixon Plaza. Since last week, counter-protests have been active.
And one of the things that was in the original description was, quote, "This is a big production and will require the help of our community to do it right and make a statement not just to these brain-dead, uneducated sheep sleeping in tents, but to all of the other anti-Israel protesters."
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out here today to the largest rally for Israel UCLA has ever seen. Over the last couple of weeks, we have witnessed pro-Hamas protesters setting up encampments all over the country. Looking around, we see warriors. We see brave men and women unafraid to come out here today. While they cower behind their masks and hide who they are, we stand tall and proudly enforce our message to the world. Israel is not going anywhere. The Jewish people.
The UCLA administration allowed them to hold an event that obviously would raise tensions, not only on UCLA's property, but within the community, because all those people went home, got on social media, and started yelling.
Stop celebrating that!
Once the rally actually died down and the participants sort of filtered out, this giant TV thing stayed, and it stayed on, blasting images of the October 7th attack. And it played all night long to prevent the students in the encampment from sleeping. And so it immediately became clear that this was, an attempt at psychological warfare against the protesters in the encampment. And that's when things started to get really intense.
It was a different world when I visited then, because the barricades with the arrival of the counter-protesters, and often with them shaking up against it, it was now very clear that this was the point of protection between a group that was predominantly students and a group that, yes, contained some students, but was predominantly people coming from outside the campus.
Day 6 of a growing pro-Palestinian encampment at UCLA. On Tuesday, UCLA notified encampment members they needed to pack up. Those who choose to remain, including both students and employees, could face sanctions.
During the day, on April 30th, the encampment community was still reeling from what had happened on Sunday, and they were expecting the administration saying that the encampment could no longer stay.
Meantime, the chancellor also put out a statement about an hour ago how the university has now engaged law enforcement to investigate recent acts of violence here on campus. Meantime, Congress also threatening funding to public institutions that can't keep students safe.
I certainly think that there is a connection between the fact that Chancellor Block was called before Congress and then all of a sudden the encampment's unlawful. Nothing changed in our behaviors. Nothing changed in what we were doing.
And so what happens on the night of April 30th?
I really started to realize that something was happening when the Meow Mix jingle started playing a little after 10. It was very loud. A large group of people just wearing all black clothing and like holding masks. And it seemed very like intentional and organized. And then slightly before 11 p.m., the first firework went off.
Hey! Hey, get this! Watch out! Watch out!
If you're firing rockets into an area with a lot of wood and tents that are potentially flammable, you have the intention of hurting people. That's what that is. It's not a joke. It was a vigilante attack.
Yeah, that's it. We fighting back, bitch.
They were not protesting. They were attacking. They came with metal rods. They came with everything they had.
And around that same time, one of my reporters asked one of the security officers whether police were coming. And the officer at around 10:50 said, "Do the right thing, be a good Samaritan and call them." And 10 minutes later, the second firework went off over the encampment.
I was standing on the side mostly. I saw a masked pro-Israel attacker run towards the barricade, and he had ripped an umbrella out of the barricade. Everything happened so fast. And the moment I was back on my feet, I was attacked again. I didn't realize that my whole face was covered in blood. The only thing I remember that I was mad about, I was mad that somebody stole my kufiyah. So I was just like shouting, like, who took my kufiyah? Where's my kufiyah?
The students did a very good job of keeping them out. They had no help at all. And I had watched the guy in the maroon hoodie pepper spray a man who was wearing like a yellow rain slicker, fully just douse him. At that point, a second man, he pointed one of those really bright LED lights in my face. And at that point, maroon hoodie was in my blind spot.
Oh, shit! Did someone record that?
Yeah, I got it.
I started hearing them yelling at me. So I just pointed myself at the security who were standing there watching them beat people up and doing nothing.
You guys are being cowards towards this, like what's going on right now.
30 minutes passed, and then an hour passed, and then an hour and a half passed, and then 2 hours passed, and then 2.5 hours passed. And then we started hearing reports about police being on campus. They just were not anywhere near Dixon Plaza. Immediately upon their arrival, something that really stood out to me was the fact that the counter-protesters cheered, screaming at them to dismantle the encampment.
God bless LAPD for sticking up for our constitutional rights. God bless you guys.
It just felt very odd, and even when the police did come in, no one was arrested.
Forward! Maseno, clear the way! Clear the way! Clear the way! Clear the way! Clear the way!
We were leaving Dixon Plaza. There were 4 of us. And as we walked past the LAPD officers and about 10 of the counter-protesters began to follow the 4 of us. Eventually, when I was able to get away from them after they had hit me in the chest and sprayed some unknown chemical at us, they pushed one of the other Daily Bruin reporters to the ground and started beating them.
Hey, chill out! Yo! Cowards! 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 Cowards!
I knew there was gonna be attacks. Like, that's what they said. I didn't think I was gonna get beat up and sent to the hospital.
What happened?
Somebody hit me. He got hit in the head with a metal baton.
With a metal baton?
Like with a metal rod.
At least 20 people went to the hospital, but countless of others were injured. There were stitches, staples involved, a lot of washing out of the eyes, and there were just a lot of injuries to treat both in the encampment but also at the hospital.
Hey, what happened? Walk off.
A day after violence exploded on the UCLA campus, questions about why it took so long for law enforcement to respond. But so far, no answers have come from UCLA police, the chancellor of UCLA, or the LAPD.
For over 7 hours, Zionist aggressors hurled gas canisters, sprayed pepper spray, and threw fireworks and bricks into our encampment. They broke our barriers repeatedly, clearly in an attempt to kill our community. Campus safety left within minutes. External security the university hired for backup watched, filmed, and laughed on the side as the immediate danger inflicted upon us escalated. Law enforcement simply stood at the edge of the lawn and refused to budge as we screamed for their help. The aggression that we faced last night shows that the university has no choice to just stand by and wait for us to get killed by Zionist aggressors. And so when the university is saying that the disciplinary action that they're taking is going to be suspensions, expulsions, dismissal, we know that that means they're going to punish us for having been brutalized last night.
Reaction is pouring in. The Daily Bruin editorial board published an opinion piece this morning calling out UCLA for being complicit in the violence and failing to protect students. Will someone have to die on our campus tonight for you to intervene, Gene Block? The blood would be on your hands.
And then that day, Gene Block issued the dispersal order as well. So then it was not just the counter-protesters, but we were also expecting the police to show up.
I got a message specifically from a friend of mine saying, you know, we need help. And I knew I didn't want to sit on the sideline. I wanted to show where I stand, and I wanted to be able to help.
Eventually, the students were, asking for faculty to come inside the encampment with the hope that, seeing distinguished-looking, faculty there might dissuade the police from using force to break up the encampment, and that's what we did.
This is a peaceful protest.
think it was around 1 a.m. that we got the first dispersal order. There were so many of them. It was just massive.
Area which was described, regardless of your purpose.
So the faculty group at that point, we were up in the corner by, like, there's like a bush up there with our banner, like, and just, you know, showing that we were there.
They started approaching on that corner where I was, and there was a hole in the barricade, and through this hole in the barricade, I saw someone holding a gun, pointing it at me, actually.
And, you know, so I linked arms with the students next to me, and so we just, you know, hung there until the police came up, eventually got me to the ground, and then he puts the zip tie handcuff things on.
Back up! Get back! Get back! You're not allowed to grab your bag. Get back.
I fell, and the officer proceeded to hit me repeatedly, and he did that until I started to fall further, and one of the other officers pulled him off of me. Then they put me on the jail bus.
First I heard it, and then I felt it. And then I looked down, and then I saw that my thumb was very, very swollen. And then pretty much the moment I realized, I kind of just yelled out, I got shot, you know, or I got shot with one of the rubber bullets. So after that, I just walked home.
This has been a military operation that unfolded at 3 o'clock this morning on the UCLA campus when it comes to the number of law enforcement.
There was definitely a very noticeable discrepancy in the fact that there were 0 arrests the night of April 30th, but 200 plus the night of May 1st. May 1st showed that LAPD could have arrested people on April 30th.
Absolutely ridiculous. This is a damn shame.
Yeah, that's right, Cher and Micah. The LAPD says that authorities arrested 210 people overnight at that UCLA encampment. Take a look.
You think we were domestic terrorists, yet we were the ones peacefully on the encampment. And it was the people who attacked us. That violence, they sat by and did nothing.
This is what's left of that pro-Palestinian encampment, a big cleanup ahead for the university.
I guess we always think that the police are there to serve and protect. And like, if there ever was a circumstance in which, you know, clearly people needed protection, that was it. And, you know, I understand that the administration itself has a lot of questions to answer. You know, I really want to know precisely who those people who came onto my campus were and inflicted violence against the students.
There are several questions that would deserve an answer. On November 5th, 2024, the Los Angeles Police Department published its review of the response to the UCLA Palestine Solidarity Encampment. The assessment of the policing and law enforcement activities on the nights of April 30th and May 1st requires an expert opinion.
My professional background is I retired as a lieutenant with over 33 years of law enforcement experience, primarily with the Los Angeles Police Department.
Jeff Wenninger is a former internal affairs investigator at the Los Angeles Police Department.
I draw from my vast experience in the investigation and adjudication of lethal force incidents, crowd management and control, as well as police managerial best practices.
As we piece together facts, timelines, and accounts, we also managed to talk to a source that does not wish to be identified, a person that was directly involved in the law enforcement response to the encampment, and that will remain anonymous.
Happening about talkies, but story truth needs to get out.
This confidential voice will help us identify those that should be held accountable for failing to protect the students at UCLA.
Yes, there are still a few gaps that need to be filled, and so let me know how you want to go about it.
Well, probably better to answer the question that maybe I can fill some gaps.
When did UCLA ask for help from LAPD and other law enforcement agencies on the night of April 30th?
The timeline of reported police calls and police summons starts with the then Chief John Thomas when he texted us around 11 saying that he had summoned LAPD for assistance in addressing what was happening on campus.
The chief of UCPD requests LAPD assistance due to fights erupting at the encampment on the UCLA campus.
We did not hear anything in between that time and when the Vice Chancellor of Strategic Communications sent us the press statement that said that the university had called in police.
Mary Osako, Vice Chancellor for UCLA Strategic Communications. Horrific acts of violence occurred at the encampment tonight, and we immediately called law enforcement for mutual aid support. We are sickened by this senseless violence, and it must end.
And there wasn't a request for a mobile field force until about 15 minutes to 1 in the morning. When you make a request for a mobile field force, communications, the first thing they will do is call for a tactical alert. And that essentially means that no officers can go home at end of watch.
LAPD requests a mobile field force through the Department Operations Center. 30 minutes later, at 1:25 a.m., Dominic H. Choi calls the field commander at UCLA and tells him to take what resources he has available and go into the protests to end the violence.
And there wasn't really any initial police interaction or deterrence of any attacks on the encampment until about 1:44 in the morning.
The LAPD and California Highway Patrol squads meet the crowd and begin separating protesters and counter-protesters. However, it takes about another hour before the California Highway Patrol actually begins to clear Royce Hall of counter-protesters.
They came in very slowly and they just moved forward every few minutes, and a few of the times they were just like kneeling and preparing riot gear, and then nothing was really happening to the counter-protesters. I didn't hear any direct threats of arrest to those individuals.
On the river to my house.
Let's go! Let's go! Finally, I can go back to class. Finally! Finally! We're gonna go back to class!
The timeline of the response of the police officer resources to the demonstration after it was said that the requests were made, they're difficult to reconcile. I can assure you the LAPD, if you make a request for personnel, they will have 60 officer platoon, mobile field force platoon, in your staging location within 45 minutes of that request. I saw it time and time again, on any time of the day.
Everybody needs to leave!
If you reversed the sides, say if it was a pro-Israeli encampment and a bunch of pro-Palestinian vigilantes attack, those people would have been on the ground and in cuffs within an hour.
Is it plausible that LAPD or CHP or any neighboring police forces were short of staff and they were not able to put together a decent amount of officers to intervene before 3 a.m.?
I do not believe so. I do not believe that that's a plausible explanation. And truth be told, if this had occurred on Hollywood Boulevard in front of a bar, you would have had a more significant police response in a much quicker and rapid manner than you did on the UCLA campus. And they're not just going to come and quell the situation. They're going to determine who's committed to crime, and there's going to be arrests made and people held accountable.
So what went wrong on the night of April 30th? Because, I mean, if you file a request at 11 p.m., I've been told that it takes roughly 45 minutes for LAPD to assemble at least 70 officers in riot gear.
That is not true, because I think there's some factual errors. It did not take them 4 hours to get here. They were actually here. It was, and this is the question that I can't answer, that needs to be asked of LAPD. Why once they got here, did they not immediately engage with the crowd? And why there were not arrests?
Once it arrived on campus, why didn't the police confront the attackers and no arrests were made?
When the UCPD and LAPD, I think the Highway Patrol was even there by that point, are all standing there doing nothing, or all they're doing is maintaining a perimeter so no further people get in or out, there was a feeling amongst a lot of people. They were not there to defend us, they were there to defend the property.
There are a series on inconsistencies in the LAPD's report. Despite there being at least 40 police officers from different agencies on the ground, at 1:44 a.m., the LAPD commanding officer decides not to move against the attackers. The report claims it would have been too dangerous for the public and the officers had they moved in to make arrests. Basic crowd control tactics dictate that entering a crowd without enough resources to make arrests, properly secure critical points, and avoid being overwhelmed by the crowd is dangerous for the public and officers. Therefore, it was imperative that sufficient personnel were assembled prior to further entry into the crowd.
Officers, by and large, want to serve the public and to protect the public. And if they're observing actions of others that are dangerous and there's clear victims from bad actors, action will want to be taken. And I didn't really see that posture. There's things that could have been done to mitigate what was occurring as far as the assaults with the personnel that were on scene. So when I read that report, what I saw lacking was any evidence to corroborate what they were saying in regards to the fear that they potentially would have been overrun. I don't see that in the video. So it's very difficult to determine how much weight and credibility you can give to those statements.
You think there was no other way to quell a violent mob of protesters attacking UCLA students that evening?
When you request mutual aid, those are not your resources, and you're not in control of what the tactical response and the strategy is going to be. The fact that people got hurt, that's the part that troubled me, and I was prepared to go out there by myself. and I in my street clothes, and I was told, can't go out there like that, they'll kill you.
The only thing that I dispute is that had you actually stepped in, even with 18, 20 officers, they would have probably stopped.
I agree.
Because that would have meant consequences.
I 100% agree with you. But again, I would have expected some arrests to be made. But again, the question is, yeah.
Let's go, let's go.
Everyone, leave them alone, they're helping. Evacuate.
Everyone to the left corner.
The law enforcement response, not only from the LAPD, but all law enforcement agencies, was deficient in regards to its timeliness, the number of resources that were provided, and the planning and execution of carrying out their function to protect those that were being assaulted that night.
To date, 8 people have been charged for their role in the attacks against the Palestine Solidarity Encampment on April 30th. The attackers were not identified by law enforcement, but by investigative journalists and internet sleuths.
People on Twitter that were collecting every single video and photo material they could get, and they were trying to unmask every single one of the attackers. And they sent me pictures. They were like, "Is this the guy who attacked you? Like the same guy on that night?" I was like, "Yeah, that's him."
Even if the assailant has a name, there still needs to be a victim that is willing to file a report for charges to be pressed.
I think it's necessary for there to be a specific victim, specifically to be charged with felony assault. But since no one was killed, that would have been felony murder, it becomes like a crime without a victim. And so then without the victim, there is no crime.
The first person to be arrested was identified in a CNN report. His name is Edenon, and he's a high school student from Beverly Hills.
And then the Los Angeles District Attorney, George Gascon, decided not to press charges on him for felony assault, despite the fact that there's a ton of evidence that he committed not just one, but multiple assaults. I have him on camera trying to sneak up on me.
This is not an isolated case. After coming forward and pressing charges, the case against Yusuf's alleged attacker has also been dropped.
I went to the police multiple times trying to, I showed them, this is the picture of him, this is the video of him hitting me, this is his name, I have every single bit of proof you need. I even have facial recognition that this is him. I have a picture of him before and after the attack and everything. And it took them 2 or 3 weeks to assign a detective to my case. They said, I don't have enough proof and it's gonna fail at the district attorney or something.
Similarly, there are no news with regard to the person Catherine tried to press charges against.
I personally filed a police report with UCPD, and I have yet to hear any information on that, despite sending videos and sending pictures of the attack and the attacker. But I have heard nothing yet.
Instead, the man that pepper sprayed Dolores has fled the United States before he could be arrested.
I was told who my attacker was, Ayel Shalom. He is Jewish. He did go to a private Jewish religious school called Valley Torah. And other than that, I don't know a lot.
Good morning. I'm a journalist.
Yeah.
And I was looking for Ayel Shalom.
He's not here.
Is he your son?
He's in Israel.
He's in Israel?
Not here.
You're his father?
Yeah.
He's been filmed assaulting a lot of people at UCLA.
You know, everybody have to protect himself if something happened there. Okay.
But was he a student at UCLA?
Huh?
Why was he at UCLA on April 30th in the night?
Don't remember. Nothing. Please.
I mean, what did he have to protect himself from? I don't understand.
I don't know nothing. Please. Give me my...
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Over the course of years, universities gradually nurtured a campus culture of radicalism. Then suddenly, October 7 ignited a powder keg of pro-terror campus fervor. That's why the committee is yet again calling for accountability from those in charge of universities. Each of you should be ashamed of your decisions that allowed anti-Semitic encampments to endanger Jewish students.
What happened at UCLA does not just define UCLA. I don't think that any campus across the country had something so severe as the counter-protester attack on the encampment, but at the same time, I think it kind of really centered people and made them realize how much suppression there is in the country of free speech, specifically relating to Palestine.
Dr. Jean Block, you will testify to the horrific violent events that unfolded at UCLA, leading to 243 arrests. You cleared the encampment only after a violent riot erupted. Your actions were too little, too late.
The narrative that has been the standard in the United States that Palestinians are terrorists and Israelis are the heroes, and any type of criticism against them is anti-Semitic. That's why the level of violence and hatred that happened at UCLA, that vigilante terroristic attack that was not only tolerated but allowed to go on for hours. The reason that they went that hard is because they feel they're losing the PR war.
You begin with you, Mr. Schill. Do you believe that Israel is a genocidal state?
No, I do not.
Okay. Mr. Holloway?
I do not.
Okay. Mr. Block? Chancellor Block?
I do not.
It's not. Okay, thank you. Would you acknowledge that from the river to the sea and Intifada revolution, these phrases are anti-Semitic calls for the destruction of Israel and the slaughter of Jews? Chancellor Block?
I also think they're anti-Semitic, although surveys show, interesting, many people do not.
So it's always a thing of like David versus Goliath. It's like they are running everything, they're owning everything, and we're just students. But we're still changing something. We're still changing people's minds slowly. And I am convinced actually that our generation is the generation that will make a change for good.
Members of the committee, my name is Jean Block, and I'm the Chancellor at UCLA. Thank you for inviting me here today. UCLA has a proud history of peaceful protest. Before October 7th, we successfully navigated campus protests using strategies recommended by the University of California. But on April 25th, as a result of a conflict that spread across universities across the country, a protest sprang up at the center of our campus, testing the limits of our approach.
If someone's committed to using violence to stop what you're trying to say, I mean, they only win if you stop saying it. Our actions on the local level do have an impact on even the global level. The fact that the students at UCLA, I mean, they took action. This shows that people are listening, people are watching, and people are mad. If you make people mad, it means you've done something, And I just wish university presidents would learn that lesson, would learn that they're actually serving the mission of the university when they let protests play out.
On April 28th, I decided to remove the encampment after violence broke out between opposing demonstrators. We gave the protesters written notice that the encampment was unlawful on April 30th and instructed them to disperse. But before the necessary police resources could be assembled, assailants attacked the encampment that evening. Tragically, it took several hours before law enforcement could quell the violence. On May 1st, but when more than 200 protesters refused police orders, law enforcement removed the encampment that night. With the benefit of hindsight, we should have been prepared to immediately remove the encampment if and when the safety of our community was put at risk.
Getting to see a community grow out of nothing just on the Royce quad lawn was really, really beautiful. And I have a lot of good memories of, doing security and reading a book that I got from the free library, or eating one of the meals in my friend's tent, and, using that to sort of, light the fire in our hearts to really fight for what we think is right, which is not genocide, which is not our tuition money going to genocides.